I'm staying at a place called Castlepoint, which is well known for its lighthouse, which you may be able to see behind me. I just can't quite tell if that's it over there somewhere. And also known for that big hill right there, which is, from here, looks really steep and treacherous, and on the other side of it is a sheer cliff. And from there, you get a great view of the lighthouse, which is over here somewhere. And from the lighthouse, you get a great view of that. So right now it's midday, definitely not the right kind of light for shooting, and I'm just going to go out there and scout it right now, because there's potentially really good conditions for sunset tonight. So I'm going to head over there and I'll see what that looks like also. Well, it's now about 4 hours later, and I come back up on the rocks and have scouted all this area quite a bit now. Right now I'm parked in what I think is about the third best composition, saving the best for later when the sunset conditions are ideal. So here, just these few rocks here that are quite interesting, and then the long row of rocks that go all the way out in the sea there and curve around to the big mound that's right there. And as you can see, the sun's going to hit it at a pretty decent angle. So this area is quite infamous for heavy gales of wind, and it was horrendous last night and even earlier this morning. And it eased up as the day went on, and now, as you can see in the grass here, it's pretty still at the moment, which I like. Tomorrow morning it's going to be windy again, and I think the better compositions here are for sunrise. So maybe on the other side of this little piece of peninsula we'll get some pretty heavy seas. But what I'm not liking so much about this composition is the beach is taking up a good chunk of the bottom right corner of the picture, and this is a beach where everyone drives onto it and then they go out there and do donuts with their cars. So not quite ideal, but I'm hoping once I go to the lighthouse that's over there, then the beach will be a lot less obvious. Well, I think it was becoming quite obvious that this shot was never really going to work out. That beach is an absolute mess and there's no way to avoid it. And also the sky was not really shaping up the way I had hoped it would. So I abandoned this spot and I decided to go up to the lighthouse and try my luck there. Well, here you can kind of see what my composition is. I was trying to avoid these stairs and there's no real way to do it, so I decided to make them a big part of the shot and make them into a leading line. Unfortunately, the sunset looks like it's going to fizzle. It's about to go behind a big bank of clouds and never to return, I think. Well, I've completely changed my composition. I didn't like how the stairs were completely dominating the shot, so I've gone on the other side of the stairs and see where the camera is. Well, as you can see over there, the sky is quite nice, but that's about the only thing. As you can see down here, the light is really dull right now, so we've lost the sun. The sky alone doesn't make a shot, so I'm going to call this one a fail, and we'll try in the morning for a different angle. So guys, it's my second day in Castlepoint. So far I've been a little bit skunked by the conditions. It's been windy as hell, except for the one evening where it was still but didn't get the good light that I was hoping for. So now, as you can see behind me, it's been really windy and the sea conditions are just whipped up like crazy, and there's white caps all over the place. And so I might try going out there again this evening for the sunset, if there is one. Pretty heavy cloud conditions around, but there is a few blue patches. When I was out there for sunrise this morning, I was getting really like sandblasted while I was trying to take the shots, but I still got a pretty decent shot. And tonight might be my last chance to get anything here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do any audio over there because it's going to be all wind noise. It's going to be crazy. And out on that point there, it's really exposed, and it's going to be nuts. But let's see what I can get, and I probably might even shoot without a tripod because it's going to have to be short exposures so that I can get anything like the greenery. It's going to have to be really short exposures just to get things to sit still. Well, I did go back out to the lighthouse to try to get another shot, and there was a little bit of a breeze. Yeah, it was a little bit like this. How's my hair? Well, that's the most wind I've ever experienced, I think. That was absolutely nuts. I'm back at the car. I drove the car out on the beach, by the way. And the car is just rocking right now. So I don't know if I got any worthwhile shots. Maybe an interesting video anyways. Okay, so not quite ideal when you can hardly stand up against the wind to take the shot, but I did at least get one shot that was somewhat average, and I took that shot from pretty much the exact same spot as I did the previous night, and it's just slightly different lighting conditions. Guys, I managed to find a slightly sheltered spot, but it's absolutely crazy. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stand up in the spot where I want to take the photo, but you hear the howling noise? That's the wind going across the lighthouse. And check out the sea. None of these images really measured up to what I came to Castlepoint for, but a little bit of persistence paid off, and I had one more sunrise to capture, and this is where I think I got the shot of the trip. Well, it's now the next day, and it's windy as hell. I'm here for sunrise. Last night I came out for sunset, and it didn't work out too well. Sort of a nice sky, but the sun went behind a big bank of clouds. The foreground was just all dull. But this morning, there's a reasonable chance of a decent sunrise. There's just a skiff of cloud over top of the lighthouse. And as you can see out, the sun should come up relatively unobstructed. So a little bit of hopeful that we might have a decent sunrise here. And my composition, I had started with my camera down here. As you can see, I'm framing it with these rocks in the foreground. And I didn't like that the rock on the right was blocking what you see of the sea. So I brought it over here. Now we see a little bit more of the sea, and the lighthouse is on the right, or pardon me, the left third of the picture. I was kind of hoping for a little bit of surf happening here, but there's not very much. The wind is blowing actually offshore rather than onshore. There was some pretty big breakers coming in, smashing up against these rocks last night, and would have been a nice photo, except that the lighting conditions just weren't right for sunset. Here at sunrise, the sea is a little more calm in spite of so much wind. and it's so windy that I'm a little worried about this camera sitting there. We're just going to get blown off the rocks. Well, that was a little more like it. I think this was a much better picture than the other ones I took at Castlepoint. So I think what I'll probably do is I'll scrap the other pictures and just stick with this last one because it's substantially better. And full disclosure, I did do a fairly heavy surgery on part of this picture to fix what I think was a compositional mistake. Well, believe it or not, this entire corner of the picture actually did not exist in the original image. It's actually put together from another image. And why did I do that? Let me take you back to the original shot. Okay, here you can see what the problem is. Now, it might be a little bit harsh to say that it was a compositional error because I think that the rock on the top corner works out really well. But this rock in the bottom right corner, really it just interferes with what we'd rather be seeing, which is what's behind it. I really don't like how it actually overlaps some of these other more important rock formations that we'd rather be seeing. So fortunately, I was able to find another shot from a slightly different angle that I took a little later on that actually had all the elements that I wanted to fit into that spot. The only problem was that the patch photo was in fact taken from a little bit different angle, and therefore it didn't fit in exactly, so I had to push and pull and skew it to make it fit into position. Now you'll also notice that part of this rock overlaps the sea, and that was another problem. The actual patch looked like this, and now you can see that the sea doesn't match at all because it was at a different shutter speed. So the water surface also had to be manufactured. I had to do this by a process of repeated cloning and then fading the opacity and doing it over and over until I had something that kind of looked somewhat believable. But I think you'll agree that these rocks that are down in the bottom corner are much more interesting than that. As for the rest of the edit, we just have further layers of contrast adjustment and dodging and burning until we get this. You can probably tell that this shot was actually shot around about 10 minutes before the actual sunrise. As you can see, the color in the clouds is kind of pink on the high clouds and not on the lower clouds. And of course also my patch in the bottom corner was at a different time of the day, so that also needed to be color adjusted to match. So this image went from this original shot to this after the edit. Well, where my first two pictures that were at sunset were not the greatest, and I think maybe like a 3 or 4 out of 10. This last picture in sunrise I think was one of my better pictures from my entire New Zealand trip, and so I would say this is like a 7, maybe even an 8 out of 10 on this one. I think I'll want to go back to Castlepoint sometime because I never did get up on top of the hill, on the big hill, which I think has probably the best viewpoint, and I didn't go up there because, you know, virtually hurricane force winds, and it's not really the best place to be on top of a hill on the edge of a cliff with the wind blowing offshore. So I passed on that this time around, and we'll get back to it another time. So this is about it for this episode, so we'll see you next time.